Okay guys, hello, welcome to another session. This is supposed to be a catch up on what we've been doing so far, and also to give you to show you what I've done so far, and assigned new tasks to you on what to do as working on the process or continuation of what we're supposed to do on our deliverables on the mobile application. So obviously you notice that there have been a lot of changes. I've tried to go as much as possible towards the end product. What I mean the end product is like the mobile. There's nothing like you seeing it the way it will look like at the end result. And if you're using your browser, yeah, it's still okay. But the technology we are using is WebView for Android and also for iOS. It's not native. The advantage of using this process is that it's faster, like very fast to quickly deploy, even though it's not the most efficient. There are better ways to develop your mobile application, right? You can use React Native or use Flutter. So this is where we are in this. There's quite a lot of stuff we'll be going through, updates that we've done in the system. Eventually, I've started work on the backend. I will see if we can start testing the backend request today, if that's possible. I've written the backend API for authentication, which is a huge development or huge improvement in the line of what we're trying to do. Then I've also done some restructuring on the base. So let's see where we can start from first. Let me show you how I brought the Android Studio up, which might be somehow very tasking for you to set up, but it is what it is. Let's see how we can go ahead. But if you can't set it up on your system, you can just use your browser. It's still the same thing. So I come up with the package here. The package here, if you guys remember, I did mention about what is going on here in the package. So I'll be focusing on things that are important. So this one is needed, dev mobile and build mobile. So this production is a way for me to determine which IP I'm using. The production is used to determine which IP I'm using. When you are looking through WebView like this, you need the IP. You need to fix the IP. So let's go and look at what's going on here. Now, this was brought by from the capacitor configuration. Remember, what is available, why we're able to do this is through capacitor. If we're using React Native, we would have been looking at Expo. If we're using Flutter, Flutter has its own thing, right? Okay, so if I go to the capacitor, so this is what is happening in the capacitor. I'm checking if it's developed or if it's production. You should use something else. But since I'm doing local, I'm using this IP address. Now, how did I come about this IP address? This IP address, you will see it when you do npm run.dev. Run npm run dev. You will see this will come up. It's one of the location that you see localhost, you see this IP, and then you see another IP. This is my system, and your IP might be different. Remember this port, we specified this port long time ago. Now, why can't you just use localhost? Localhost does not work on your mobile. This is an emulator, so you can't use you can't use localhost. You have to use this. Now, when we are doing production, of course, we will not put the production address. This is development. So if we now want to start, hosting it online, we'll then put the address. Because the device will have access to the internet, you will be able to resolve the proper address or domain that it should go. That one will be for later. Still on the package, that's how this came to be, which is needed. The IP is very important, and you're going to see the IP quite a lot in number of places. The next thing is that if you've not have your iOS set up before, you need to do whatever you need to do. This is what I'm running now. npx capacitor run Android L. Once you do this, if you have Android Studio already installed, if you don't have it installed, you have to do a whole lot of things to get it working. When I ran this, it gave me some bunch of errors, meaning it's saying that I have to run Java 1.7 or thereabouts. I have to downgrade my Java, which I did, and then boom, everything is working in my development environment. Okay, all these other ones are for something else, which we are not yet there yet. At that point, there are some times where you will need to also build or create release packages of your Android so that you can upload to a Play Store. Another thing I also did was to make it in such a way that when I make any changes, this place will change, right? Making it reactive to code change. There's quite a lot of setup that I did. I think the major setup was this one. It allows the system to make changes. Whenever I'm doing anything, it will do recompile and do whatever it needs to do. Technically, I think that's everything on the package I want to talk about. Yeah, for now. Let's move on to the code base and see where things start coming to life. What are the things that I did? But before we go into the code base, let's start using the system. Let's log in and see what happened. Okay, let's go to the code base. Now, if I go here, I notice that normally I don't use app router, or yeah, I just put everything inside app, like so. Typically, this is what I normally do. I put everything I need to do inside the app as opposed to now having it go through another app router like this, but it's fine. I make do with what is available. Now, what I'm doing here is to to check the platform which I'm working on. And the good thing is that the capacitor has this thing that you can use to check the platform. So if you are using Android, I did a hard coding 40 pixels width to make room for the menu section or the status bar. But if you're on iOS has, a way to make that happen automatically, kind of, where it creates a safe area. So I created a style called safe area and create that. This safe area does not work for Android. It only works for iOS. Those are the trade-offs. Okay. Now moving on to the app router. So I kind of see some funny thing going on here, but later we'll address it. So this app layout, authentication layout, is actually supposed to be wrapped inside here, but I'll let this fly for now. We'll just continue and ignore it for now. So when you get to the system, by default, if you find yourself here, remember that when you are using this one here, this is for the root directory. This one we've already said that /login/forget. However, this is root. Just ignore the authentication layout here. So in the root, we say that first run this part. So once you run this part, the next thing is that, go and check layout and start building the whole thing. Normally, what I'm supposed to do here is more of like a context. I don't know if you guys are aware about context. Context where you can wrap and say, maybe make a particular part secure. So if we'll be going deep into React, maybe we'll be looking at later, but not in this area. There's a lot of things you can do and decide on how you want to handle it. There's a lot of flexibility that React brings to the table. So let's go ahead and see what we have. So if I click on this authentication layout stuff, this is where the system checks and see to make sure that you are actually logged on. Every time you hit that part, it does this, try and get the user. So I get the user, and then there's a process of me loading. So the process of you trying to get the user, what happens then is called loading. So when it loads, this is what it shows. Later we can do fancy stuff there. And if peradventure it doesn't have any user, it will redirect you to login. If everything goes out well, it just allows you to go into the outlet. Outlet is what is inside here. The next thing is your outlet, which is this part. So we have nested outlet like that. Okay, so this other part we're already done with it. So this is just the new thing. Let's look at the code that made up this. So this uses hook. This is now going to React explanation. So root hook is where you have okay, let me just go. I don't want to go and start defining some things now, but this method, what I did here was to use a hook to check if the user exists, and then if, or rather, the user is logged in. So let's go in and see what we did there. So I created the user. Later I'm still going to create a proper user object, which I've not done here. I'm supposed to create the object of the user itself. so that will match all the parameter that it has, so that you can properly do the mapping instead of returning unknown. We'll do that later. So if we're calling back, we're making an asynchronous call, you will notice that you didn't see the endpoints. How are we calling the user? It's called inside here. I don't want to mess everything up here. I want to separate the hook from the request. So the request is made inside this part, fetch user. So here where you have the API, that's authentication part. So this is the login value, what I'm using to log in. This response, typical response from, I think this needs to be changed. So this is not my typical response. This authentication response rather. Authentication response, which I think doesn't come with this. It just comes with only this token. But I need to look into that. This authentication response. Then there's what I call API response. We'll get to see that one later. API response is like a standard response that will come on all what we send out there. So this to log in, this to log out. So this is like kind of, I just quickly rushed it up to do. There's still some few cleanup we're gonna do, but not now. So I created a new endpoint called authenticate me, like just check me out, auth/me. There's the login, there's the logout. And what this does is just call the endpoint, and if it's available, well, it will just tell us what it needs to do. Now, how does this work? This works by passing in the cookies. So anything, any request that we try to make. So this is like what this class does is just to send stuff to the API that we have. So you can see that we are having the endpoints here, and then we are specifying what with credentials means that the cookies that must have been set while you log in, send it across or along every time. So we're not using bearer token authentication and all those things. So there are different methods, guys, to which you can do authentication. So this is just one of the methods. So you are sending that information, and then your response is coming to this data that we have here. Okay, so this is just a simple way for us to get by and go. So let's go to Golang and see what's happening. If you head straight to Golang, and let's see our main. In your main, this is a new thing that I did, because now we want to start collecting, we want to start interacting with the backend. You need to do something like this, allow origins, because especially if you are dealing with cookies, right? The system needs to make sure that the person that is requesting is the same domain that is hitting it. So if you say you are from yahoo.com, and then it needs to make sure that I'm the one that sets that cookie. So that's what this one is talking about, and you can only put one domain. So what we've done is, let me show you all the configuration files. So we've added new things in our environment variable. We have new things that we've added. We have all this one here. The token, access token expire 15 minutes, refresh every 30 minutes, refresh token cookie name, the name which will be known by, then domain, the cookie domain name, which is very important. Now this domain name is what in localhost, notice I told you that this thing will be looking at it. This is the same IP that I'm using on my system. So on your system might be different. So it's very important. On your system it might be different, but I think I'm not so sure. On your system might be different. So if you run your normal npm run dev, it will show you localhost. It will show you one other one. It normally shows 3. So the second one is what I used, right, for my development here. Online, we would have used the name of the hosts. It can be assetgear.com or .net, whatever it is. So that way it knows that the backend is what is providing this front end to this thing. So you can't be in the middle and hack the system. Now the app URL is, this one is the URL from the app, from the front end, how you get to the front end. This is what it's talking to. The reason why it's different here is because of the ports. Online you will not be needing ports, so typically online they will be kind of the same. So we've looked at this mode before. Let's go ahead and see the main and continue to just look at the code technically to see. I've eventually implemented delay because I want to see what's going on when our app is kind of loading. So let me just say 4 seconds or 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds. So I'll just give us that delay effect so everything will not just be looking so fast. Now this is what I did here. The authenticate me. I already have a group. So every time just give me like small delay, right? And then let's say get current user. That's what the guy does. Get current user. I won't walk through all the whole code. I'll just focus. Well, let's see how it goes. Now the idea of this is anytime you visit any endpoint, it makes sure that it checks to see if you are still the person you are. Now these cookies here, this is where I'm getting the cookies. How is this cookie supplied, or how do I get this cookie? Is from the context here, which was supplied from the API, automatically from the API request. This is it here. If you do not put this information here, you will not be able to use that. So this is your JavaScript. Your JavaScript is attaching the cookies to every request that it makes. So here I'm getting it, and what I need to do is I need to remove the token name. The token name is called refresh token. I remove it, and then if there's an error when I'm trying to do whatever I'm trying to do, it means the token was not sent, right? I also need to get the header. Now what I did is whenever I'm logging the token, whenever I'm logging in someone to the system, there are some key information I log to the system. I log the person's IP address, I log the user agent, that's the browser, and then what other thing do I log? I think technically those are the things I logged. And you need to check the database to make sure that that person actually exists in your token, or the token has not expired. So that's what I'm doing here to confirm that, hey, this guy, is he still there? So if he's still there and is valid, grant him access, else don't grant him access. So that's what this part is trying to do. Okay, let's go in. I've created a demo account. So if I go to, I have this test platform, and I think you guys should have it as well. It's called, the extension is called REST. So if you go to REST, I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, you will see the extension. The extension allows you to just write stuffs and create endpoints and use it to hit an endpoint. So it's quite easy. So it's called REST clients. Instead of you coming up like I have Thunder clients like this, which you can pass your endpoint like Postman, but I think I want to maintain a file that I can easily change and work with. So this is what I have. I just created a file called rest.http, and with that file I can easily create this kind of coding. So I'm coding my endpoint. First of all, I'm determining my hosts. My host, this is just a variable name. I'm just creating a variable and say, oh, this is my host, because I don't want to be repeating myself every time. The next thing is I want to send this information. I say post authentication to login, like the host / this. You have to put this content type, you have to put a space, and then pass in your JSON. So if you run this, for example, it will give you a result and tell you if you have access or not. So this is your typical endpoint, so which worked. So normally I prefer using this method to test my endpoints. Now let's go ahead and log in. So we already have this information. So login process, I won't bore you with all the whole process to logging in, as in going through the code over and over again. So you can also check that out. So we're expecting that 4 seconds delay, 3.5 seconds delay. That is what is happening there. So the first one, you saw that it loaded twice. The first one was to log in. The second one was, I'm sure, to authenticate the person again. Yeah. So I would have shown you that if I had that view. So if you're using it on the web, you can inspect elements. Once you inspect elements, you will see that it loaded twice. So those are small things that we can actually work around. Okay. One of the things that I tried to do was to also look at the theme, but I think I settled for this color. When I mean theme, in terms of the styling that I end up with, I was looking at trying to check a better color to use. So I was looking at something like this, but eventually I still settle with what we had before. So, but this one looked good on the login screen, but I think we'll just deal with this for now. So let's move on. We have our home. You will notice that it doesn't clash with the status bar. You will not, appreciate this until maybe you try it without having those things that I've created. So I created the save area. This save area only works for iOS. Only for iOS. That's because of this environment. Only work for iOS. It doesn't work for I mean Android. That's why I had to hand code a 40 pixels height for that, and I hope that will solve it. So another part is I like that you've gone ahead to do this one now, but the thing is we now need to start feeding it with information. By the way, it's not everything here that will make it to where it is. I know these were settings, so we'll knock off what we need to knock off and maintain what we need to maintain on the system. For starters, the user will not be able to edit anything. It's just a view only information that we'll have. One of the things we can start doing now is let's make use of the fact that we have the user information and start playing with things. So what do I mean by we have the user information? So let me first look for this guy. So we have the user information already inside. We don't have it. We have to get it every time we want it, which is that's use. So we'll have it here. Let me go and see the implementation. So of course we have to import this guy. Then we need to make use of the user. Can already declare. Okay, so you made use of user already in your coding to use it to get all this information. So but for now we're gonna remove them, but of course some things are gonna be missing because that's the 3 seconds that you are seeing there. So we need to remove that delay because now it's gonna be so awkward every time. So but sometimes I needed to see what happened, to put that delay. So I told you the reason why I had that delay there is intentional. For example, you might want to test to see if the loading is working properly. If you like what you're seeing, you like what you see. So if you like what you see, then you make use of it. Okay, we have some stuff we need to clear, right? Things are not working the way they're supposed to be. You want to know how you want to handle its loading. And let me see, this user now has introduced quite a lot of things, a lot of bug in the code. So for now, let me just put its loading here for now. I want to treat this loading. Okay, I think. Okay, let me not get that, but I think it will still give me an error. So let's start taking care of the user. We already have the user here, but we have a point whereby the user does not exist, right? What I mean does not exist is that it's null at some point because there's a part that it will go and load the information. That's why most times you need to also check for its loading so that when it has finished loading, you can start using the user. But I'm curious, I want the screen to show pretty quickly. So let's see where you start making the user available. I'm going to put some parts to be fixed for now. Will this one work there? Okay, so that part is fixed. So we have username. Now I think it's high time that we go and create a proper structure for our user. We need to create a proper object for it so that we can better use TypeScript very well. So this one is where we are creating the user. So we've said that is unknown, but we need to give it a better type. Can I just say user? Let's say app user for now. And let's go to type declaration. So I kind of create a, yeah, it's not utility. Let me just say type at type. For lack of a better stuff. So I think it should just be user. Okay, so I need to look at the way the user is declared, right, from the Golang backend, because the user is coming directly from Golang, and there's a structure we've designed there. So I can just go here, current user. This is where the user is being dropped off here, token user. So if you go to this user, this is the user we are getting. So this is technically the structure of what we are looking at. And by the way, you know, Microsoft uses Golang because to create to update TypeScript, because TypeScript happens to be a very similar programming language with Golang. Okay, going forward, so we have, I don't care about the user ID, but let me just put everything here. So we'll have the user ID, but it's called ID, surname, email, user role. So this needs to be open. In fact, I will just let this guy do this thing for me. So let me make it visible to you guys so that you guys will see it. So this is what we have here. I will just say so let me see what it will even do for me. If it will do a proper conversion for us, then we can pick it from there. Okay, so it did number. So why is this one underlined? Okay, so we're supposed to export what we did because we need that information. So we have the surname, this, we have this user role, this one will inject itself into this, and then I don't need password key. Even the login ID, user ID, I don't need this. I just need that role rating. So let's give it a try. So this should map exactly what is coming up from that part. And sometimes if you miss one thing, it can backfire. So let's import that type there. Don't start with a get problem. So we need to tell this one that it can be null. So normally I don't think but the whole thing is supposed to be added on here. Okay. Yeah, thought I want this. So normally we're not supposed to add it in where we are coming from, not here, not here. Okay, so we should now be able to properly, hey, what's the problem here? So I know we've started having type issue now. So this is one of the, okay. But it's good to actually use the power of this stuff. Voila. So the reason why it's having this like this is because what if this one is not there? ID string is not assignable to a permanent of this. So it's having issue with this null. We need to define the default value of the user. The user have to, so we have undefined. Let me see if it will accept undefined. We need to go back to the type guy. So now the problem is here, argument of type ID. Let me see where this guy is complaining. It's not assigned a parameter of type set. And now you can't fix it for us. Even the fix is coming with a problem. So what it's doing here is that it's trying to set the default value, because there will be a situation whereby this value does not return anything, or there's an issue, so it won't be able to set the user. Let me check if it can collect null. Okay, so it can actually collect null here, but was never used. Okay. Okay, so the issue is down to our definition of set user. Let me ask a better guy, because so let me look at this, our setup very well. So I know that this is what is trying to, because I'm also trying to avoid writing long code. So this is what it's asking us to do, which is seriously serious. So if this user, contains stuffs, it say we are creating the user ourselves. What is returning from here is not the same object as this user. So what is coming from current user here, which is here, needs to either be cast or, we need to return it back as a normal user. I think this is where the problem is coming from. Can I cast it from here? So this auto response. Can I create the user from here? Because that's another thing. You can either turn this data coming back as your normal user and assign it and then use it. Okay. I will not let that one take up our time. So let's go ahead. This other data, we don't know if they exist. So that's why this other data now, we don't know. They are not type safe. They are not type safe. They are not type safe. So even from the backend. So this is what this data is returning. Okay. Let me check this other part. Oh, we don't need the goal. So what I want to do right now is for us to see what is returning. Because we need to see that. Then we'll be able to appreciate what's going on. Okay, so let's go in. Okay, do we have any error somewhere here? Okay, let's go in. Where's our rest? Username and password. Demo account. Okay, so we're able to go in. Now our data is returning. This is what we're expecting, which is exactly what we're expecting. But I don't know. I think it's different from what is providing us. So let me do that again. So the console is giving us the data is giving us the right thing. The data is giving us the right thing. This is what we're expecting. So let's go ahead. Let's continue with what we have. So this is where we're getting the current user. This is the data. So let me see what it will do for us. What did this guy do? So what we're supposed to do is this is not supposed to be this as of authentication response. Now authentication response should be like, normally this is what the response should look like. So this is wrong. That is wrong. So let me show you the right thing to do. So the right thing is supposed to be user. So it's either you have the user information or not. Okay, because this user is exactly what is in this data. So the whole thing will map to themselves. And if for some reason something went wrong, it will return null. So the whole thing should kind of work. Let me get to now see what this one is saying now. So because we said this, what is now returning now is now user. Okay, so we don't need to go through all this trouble. We can just set user now. Okay, so everything is working well now. So it's either the user is there or it's null, and we've told it that it can be null. So that should fix quite a lot of things. Now let's look at what's happening in the profile part now. Let's go back to the profile. What we wanted to do here is so that we can easily do user dots and map the whole thing. That's why we created an object out of it in the first place. So let's look for like here now. So you can say user dot surname. That's the point of having the object thing, so that you don't call what does not exist. So here I can say user dot role, and this is the sweet part of TypeScript. Okay, let's see which other part does not exist. User dot email. The reason why the question mark is there is so that to handle things that are nullable, or things that is not available. For phone, of course, we don't have that information on the app itself. So I'm trying to remove. So avoid using this fi. If you can use, okay, just ignore that. Add phone. So I don't think we'll have anything phone. So I'm looking for more user guy. Okay, so let's go ahead and log in again, and this time around we should not see any error. The whole thing should now kind of be working now, fingers crossed. So let's log in with the login credential, even though it's still showing red. So let me track where it's showing red again. So you don't have results for yourself. Okay. I want to fix the red parts. The code is so big that I can't find in terms of, this is where the issue is coming from. The font is so large that I can't find stuffs. Yes, so I think that should fix that. Everything is all good now. Let's go and get our username and password. Okay, so I have this. Then a passcode is 7286. Then we go in, then we go to profile. Now there's a problem. Okay, so what we need to do is we we don't have a way to debug the problem for now, and that's where the web part will come in. So let's go to web and see what is kind of happening. That's why you can't throw away your web, the web part that fast. You still need it for quite a lot of things. Okay, so this one is something else. It's not what we're looking for. I think I need to fix this status bar issue. So the password is 7286. Okay, so when we hit profile, that's where we get our error. Now I showed briefly. So our error is saying that so it has issue reading role. So it had issue reading role. So this is where the issue is. So I guess I think there should be a question mark here as well. I guess so, but let's see. I know where the issue is, or we've seen where the problem is. Let's go ahead and fix it. So it says user role. Let me try. Yeah, that fixed it, because this is a nullable stuff. So if you don't do it like that, you will not see that issue. So that looks fixed, but our name is kind of empty. It's not coming up with names, which is funny. It's kind of funny. It's not even bringing any data in. And that's to talk to the fact that we didn't load it. I'm sure that's one of the issue. I think I can still call. So let's load it, because we didn't actually check for loading. So let me just copy the code I have in authentication part. And by the way, we can put it in local storage so that you don't keep loading everything. There's a way we can go about it, make it persistent, right? So that we don't keep calling it every time now and then. I just wanted to make sure that we'll have, something we can start using while we build other parts of the system. So there's this conditional part. Okay, let me just tell the AI to implement it. So implement the loading for us so that we can know what is left. Okay, so it has added the loading for us. So if loading, do this. So we might end up using use effect or something. But we need to be able to, we might end up using use effect, because the page loads faster than the user can be called. So we need to find a way for it to wait, and then when we have the information, it can then show. So before that, let me even check what is happening here. And the funny thing is that it should even still show. It should still show. So let me go ahead and put it here and see. So if we put something here, it shows that. Okay, so you can see that it's not showing the name. So something is wrong somewhere. So we're gonna use our user authentication. We need to check what's happening in our user authentication. We need to check the definition. Let me make it. So something is wrong somewhere. Here's our profile page again. Okay. Are we going to use set user? Let me call this guy. Okay, so this user, let me see what this user calls. Okay. I think we're not persistent. Our data is not being persistent. That's one of the issues that we're having. That's one of the issues we're having. Okay, let me try something else. So I thought as much. Our data is not being set somehow. We're not having anything in the data. It's blank. So let's see what's happening here. Data is blank. So we need to investigate if our data, we know that our data is coming up, but it's not setting it. Let me check what's coming up here. Let me show you guys what I'm seeing. It's even showing 4 times. Our data is coming out. Our data is coming out well. Let me stop logging and check my result again. In fact, our data is coming more than we are supposed to have it. Okay, so let me do, so our data is coming out. Unfortunately, oh, okay. So I think I know what the problem is. Our data is coming out as a full, it's not coming out as, oh, I think I know what's happening. So if you can see it, the data is coming with the whole full details. It's not matching up with what we are supposed to have. So let me see if we can fix it. So what's coming up now is coming up with a whole lot of things. So here we are supposed to return response.data. In fact, let me check what is happening here in my response. So we're supposed to do response.data.data. That's what we're supposed to do. This is supposed to be .data data. Kind of. Let me make sure that we're not, because I have a lot of things coming out in the console now. Okay, so this is what we're expecting to see. This plain like this, not with the information. So it's looking better. Now this is what we're supposed to do. Response.data.data. So this data is already an object from when you use Axio. Yep. So internally within the app itself, we have the own data part. So this is what we're supposed to be doing. Now with this, we should now have the data come out as sample like so. This took forever to resolve. Okay. Now we can go back and, you know, redo this whole thing again. Let me first do this method. Yep. Let me try and remove this is loading and see if it still comes out well. If it's not necessary. Okay, the problem with this one is that it shows that blank thing and then magically just show. So this one load. If you remove this one, it will just start off with blank first, which is not neat. So it's better you just make it roll, and then once you have your data, it just shows it to you. Okay, eventually we have that data mapped, but was it not supposed to give us an error if it noticed that the data does not match what was? So that's why I say once you miss one thing like this, the whole thing will just turn to a black hole where you will not know where the data is or if it's missing or not. So we don't need the edit parts, even though I'm going to leave this to you for you to go and fix. Do we only have the it's only the name that we have? What are other parameters we have? We don't have other names. We're supposed to have like other names. Then that needs to be a new field that will be in the object. Where's the object guy? That will be here, and that needs to also be in Golang as well. Where is the object? User. So here is called okay. The next thing is, does it even match the field that is called in the database? I need to also check if that's the name of the field, if it's called other names. Yeah, that's what it's called. So we should be seeing the other column. Yep, so we have the other column there, and that's how you juggle between the front end and the back end. Okay, so that's what we have in that part. We have the email showing there. We don't typically have images for these people, but we'll see how we can deal with the image later, and that can come into the system. Just some few things that we need to clean up in the system. Surname. I think from this guy, where's the class name? Mobile bottom 1. Position. Okay, let me just set the top to be 4. Okay, better. Okay, the email is fine. This is the role. The role is not needed. Actually need the position of the person, like if it's a manager or something. Apart from the role is internal within the application, so that we'll know what your responsibilities are in the system. So that's what I think the role should be. So there should be like a position. So there's a new stuff now. So let me find user role. So there should be like a position, or let me say job title, job role. Let me call it job role. So job role. Then we'll go to Golang and create this. The field is called position in the database, but when we are exporting it out, we want to call it job role, so that it automatically knows what to put there. So if I should go to this app again, it should, yeah, this person is the manager. That's cool. Now we want to focus on, I think we are good on this aspect. I want to see other things that I want to mention before we end the class for today. I've added logout. There's a logout part. It's working because, as you notice, there should be a way to terminate your session, and it's by deleting the cookies. So there's an endpoint for logout. So if you log out like so, long story, it just checks and revoke your access to that token. There's a whole story about that part. Let me try and take the whole app out and then bring it on again. Later on, we will deal with the icons and what have you. So it shouldn't ask us to log in because, you know, it should already know our details and what have you. So let's log out and see if it will work the way it's intended to work. So there should kind of be a loading effect on logging out. We will not waste our time on doing that. But what's the time? Okay. I'll take another 30 minutes and then we'll go ahead and see what we want to do. So if I exit this one and then we'll come back again to always ask us to log in. So because that logout part was like kind of delaying, you know, as if, you know, nothing was happening. So I can kind of put a loading effect on the logout thing. So what I want to do is let's log on again and then activate the logout thing to work. So here is our demo@demo.com. Password is 7286. Now let's go to logout section. Before I go to logout section, let me remove a bunch of stuff that I will not need on this page that I know I will not need. I will not need this one off. We'll need theme, but not necessarily at this point. Account settings. So I want to remove things that I will not need. Something like offline or language. So this is more like it. Then why the height? Did you manage the height manually? Okay, we'll get to look at that. Okay, I think that's for the shadow for all these guys. Then it should kind of be like a line, a border bottom. So this one should be it. Border. Okay, looking terrible. This is not what I was expecting. Okay, let me just ignore this part. Let's not waste time. Okay, the icon. So this is where you implement the I'm not gonna touch anything here for now. I'm just curious about the shape. How account settings. Okay, that's for that. Then so we shouldn't be seeing that much space inside here. It shouldn't be this much. Again, we will look into that and okay, I think that fixed it. Yeah, it's looking better now. Okay, so what do we want to do in the logout? How do we want to process the logout? So the way we want to process the logout is to, let's see what happens here if we just did a link directly. Whoa, there's a lot going on here. BGY shadow, da da da. Why not just put okay, that's for that. So, but you could achieve that with okay, so there's this software, but that's fine. But radius. Okay, let me not pick the whole thing one after the other. So when you click on the logout, what should happen? And I'm guessing the whole thing should be not just on this, it should affect the whole button. The whole thing should be like a button, kind of, technically. So it should be applied to the button. So I don't want to click it now. Now, the next thing is for us to determine what will happen once we click it. You want to create a kind of a loading effect for the logout. Maybe that circle thing, because the whole thing just stood still. Right, so let me see. Let's add this guy. Let's tell it to do a loading effect for us. But before we do that, where was the logout called? Okay, I'm done. I called the logout. So this user authentication has the ability to also log out instead of just going to login, because we did call the logout function. We should also be able to call, yes, there's it here, logout. So, but there should be a loading effect. I'm gonna activate it now. So if I come here and say I want to use logout as well, then I could just say await logout, and let me go back and continue what I have inside here. So this does this callback. Of course, clear this, but while you are doing that, I want to say that this is equal to true, and after you are done, I will say is equal to false, so that once you click on that logout, it triggers this loading effect here, because this now starts doing loading stuff. So we don't need to call manual logout here, since this logout is going to take effect. And do we need to redirect? Let me see if that one is redirecting. No, it's not redirecting, it's just clearing. Let me not redirect and see what happens. Let me see what happens, because if we don't need to, we're going to come back to this. So let's first pull this one out, but I think we need to redirect. So let's try. I'm going to make us have a delay. Let's delay it for like 2.5 seconds. If you know, no can go sleep for here. Okay, let's give it a try. So I click. I've clicked, it's not responding. No, that loading effect is not working. Okay, so I think the button click event is not being triggered. So where we had the button stuff, I don't think it's triggering. That's here. This is not working. That is not working, or else something is working with it, or something is working against it. So let's go and check what is happening. Why is this one not responding to click events? Let me take it back to where it was before, then we'll look at what's happening. So let's treat it from here, then we'll go back and check what's happening. So if I do this, I think it's not working. Okay, I think there's something wrong with our code here. I guess this guy is being executed, but there's no way for us to check. So we will need to use the web interface to check what we are getting, because this is not giving us access to debug, right? We can't really debug that much inside here. So we need to get to the web interface. Okay. So first of all, let's check if, let me make this one a little bit so that we can see the code as well. Let's be able to check where we are. Okay. Yeah, of course we are there. So let me now see why that guy was not going in the first place. Okay. Okay, if you click here, it doesn't work. Unless you click somewhere, the icon works, this also work. So normally the whole thing should be a giant button, but I'm going to ignore that for now. Now let's go back to what is not working. So I'm sure this is not executing. Something is wrong there. So we need to call it like a function, because we're just calling it like a, okay, so we're just using it, we're not calling it like a function. Okay, so let's give it a try and see if we have a better response. So it's refreshing, but because we did not do navigate, it still came back to this page. So let me refresh the entire page, because we are supposed to actually navigate back. So if I refresh, it should ask us to log in. It should ask us to log in. Okay, good. So it's working. So, but let's remove this navigate. It's actually necessary to take us back to login. So I think I think this is better. Well, okay, let me just put login. So we're done with hi. Let's test it on our mobile interface now and see what we have the whole thing. So if we go play around, we'll come back. So anytime we hit here, it always load. Well, we can resolve that to not always load every time we come here, because it should just be available. That's we need to do that on, what's the word they call this F? We need to use effects, so that whenever we come to this page, it should just be available, because every time we are coming here now, it's loading every time. So this is where you use effects. So we need to go to under where we're gonna add the use effect guy. But let me see. So we're supposed to put it inside here. So it means we need to fetch user once. We need to use something like a context, authentication context. I don't want to make this thing so complex than it needs to be. So let's see. Okay, so let me go to this part. So make an update here. Let's see if it will recognize that. Can not recognize anything. No. It's still loading it twice, or rather it's still loading it more than one. So a way for us to load it once is to use context. But let me try a solution I'm seeing here to see if it will work. Let me try this one to see if it will work. If it doesn't work, we'll move on. It's supposed to just be loading once. It's loading twice, or rather it's loading every time we make an update. So let me return. I'll scatter everything. Okay, now let's move on to the next thing. Abi don't cuckoo break. So let's move on to the next thing, and that is let's test the logout. Then we'll log in again, and we'll continue to other parts of the app. So if we do logout, it should go out. You are supposed to actually log out. So I need to test that again because it didn't actually stay out. It lingered around. demo.com 7286 7286. So let's go straight to logout. Like the delay is because of that delay we put on the entire app. That delay is too much. Let's do like 1 second. So that needs to be built up. Okay, so I think that must have been done. So if I click on logout, okay, so now that one is working. Now the other part of this application is getting data from the backend. So let's log in first. Even though we've been able to get all this data from the backend, like login and what have you, we still have some things to clean up the login, but you won't need to worry about that for now. That will just be happening in the background. But what you just need to work on now, focus on now, is because the authentication is very important. The consistency or the data persistence is to know the user and be consistent with keeping track of the user, while these other ones are data that you fetch when you need them. So it's different. So I've seen what you've done in the assets, which is not bad, but I didn't see you linking the inner page, but we'll look at that later. So this is the inner page. Let's now use this opportunity to fetch work order. I want the one that is very easy to do, either to focus on asset or work order. Let's do work order. Now let's go to the backend. Obviously, you know that you must first have your backend sorted. Your data needs to come in the way that every other person can work with. Let's go to, where do we go to now? We already have our endpoint for work order related information. But for now, there are so many kind of work order we'll need to be able to create, or types, or how we intend to start retrieving work orders. There are methods. This is just to get all of them, right? There is the one to get by ID. Then you can also say work orders by type, like type of work order that you have. Right? We'll still talk about pagination later, but for now we'll just first load everything. Later we'll talk about pagination. You can get by type. What other method can you get? For now, let's just do this, even though we're not going to implement this one for now, but just to give you an idea of what is obtainable. So you can say, oh, work order by this. So imagine if you wanted to get by corrective maintenance, it would just be work order / corrective work order / preventive. So that will be what will come. There's going to be more endpoints, right, that we're going to be doing. So this can be by department can then be an ID. You see how we're going to specify that. Then this can be by unit. So for a department, you want to see the unit of work order that you have for that. There's also I'm going to put this one separate because it's like a unique getter. Then by status. Now you need to be able to differentiate all these things in a way that it's to know. So we can use another part to say work order by type this. So this one, since this one is going to have like 2 parts like this, so this one can stay work order /1. I don't want to say work order department and then now do the same thing here. because you have to also build these parts, you know, and you have to also make it friendly. So this one literally means work orders slash, so the slash department can be 1 slash units. The units can be 3. So this is not bad. This is good. And the reason why I'm doing this is so that you will see patterns here, and then we can actually use short names. You use short names on known things, like you know that is known. Normally I would have even preferred this to be WO, work orders, right? But I want to separate it with S and things like that. I like to maintain S to notice that I'm getting more than one data when I put S there. So when I don't put S, notice that I didn't put S here because I'm getting one work order. It kind of tells what you are returning in it kind of tells what you are returning. So as we write these codes, I'm just creating those endpoints. Honestly, we're not doing anything on them for now. We're going to be writing one, and the idea is that you can explore the backend and add more endpoints yourself. So I think we're just going to be doing only one. Later you can be adding fields, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see if you can implement the type, hopefully this type, and what we are expecting. Yeah, this can be an ID. So this one is status. Then you can put the status there. It will show what it is. So let's get going with get all work orders, which we've done before. Quickly, I'm going to do a REST call to all work order. So one of the issues we're going to be having is how we're going to be sending our cookies alongside. I'm going to check the code to see how we can pass our cookies. Right, I'm going to check that. We're going to check it together, because most times I normally do bearer token, where you do authentication and then you put bearer token, and then it will sort itself. But there should also be cookies, and let me tell you too, I think we should be able to do something like this. So let me show you where you can retrieve the cookies in the system. Let me show you. I think this needs to change, because if you are calling it from the wrong port, it will not, from the wrong address, it will not go. But the cookie can be hijacked from within here. Not that we're hijacking it, but we're kind of using the cookie that we have. So let's try and log in and get a particular cookie. So I have demo@demo.com, and we're going to change this. Let me change this right now to this IP. Oh, this is not needed. Okay, so password 7286. 7286. So we are in. Now I want to show you the cookie part. Anything that you are kind of sending goes with the cookie thing. That's it there. Cookie. I know it's kind of small, but let's manage it. So let's copy what we have there, and I hope it will work. I've never used cookies before to do stuff like this. So let's go ahead and continue. So the next thing we want to do is to now tell you the endpoint we want to call. This is to log in. We'll go with that. The next thing we want to do is to do work orders. Yes, we want to get all work orders, and we're not passing anything to it. We're just sending. Of course it's not working. But let's take a look at it closer. It's not just one try and then we're good to go. Let's take a good look at it and see what we are missing. Okay, so I think that number one is a get, not a post. So if we try and send it again, it's still saying the same thing. Now it's saying page not found. So work orders. Let me check the endpoint correctly to make sure that that's the endpoint that we're supposed to be reaching. That's main. Good. Work orders. And it's doing authentication. Normally, even if we don't have access, it should give us another message. Okay. So let me try with this. I want to see what is going on in the server. So let's check the server for the backend. I just shut down the backend. So I'm about to start it up again now. So as I'm making requests, I want to see what it's saying. So even though it's the same thing as what is showing on the right hand side, I just believe something's wrong. So this is API version 1 work orders. Okay, so let me remove the authentication code, even though that's not the problem, because it's not even supposed to be giving me page not found. I don't think we've used it before. This is the first time we're calling it. So it's still giving me page not found. So let me go ahead and let's now start fixing this work order parts, work orders. So let's go into editing of what's going on. Now we have, let me remove all these things because sometimes they have their own impact on what the code is supposed to do. This API, which part is this API calling? Okay, it's inheriting from here. Number one, let me first remove this delay. So okay, that delay is gone. Let this one first stay like this. Okay. Okay, so let me change it back to localhost because I was coming from localhost before. Well, I don't think that's a problem. Still the same thing. So let me try this one. This one went in. So, okay, I think I see something here. It said dropping domain attributes, invalid cookie domain. Let me see how that one was generated. Is it from here? Okay, not from there. Okay, so what I would do is I will bring it out because I'm sure something is going on within all this our nesting. So let me bring it out and call it from a top level. Let's call it from a top level requisition or request and see what it's saying. So I'm creating, so I'll just say r.get. Is it by force? So let's call it from this top level and see what it will say. Of course, now because I'm in that top level, I need to provide all these parts to it. Then let's take a wide shot at it. Okay, so now it's working. So I need to, it's working now. These are my data. My data is coming out well. But now let's retrace our step and see what we did wrong. So I'm guessing there's a lot going on in this stuff that we did that is not too happy with. It's not too happy with some of our implementation here. So let me read and see if we can fix it. So this is where I need ChatGPT. Okay, so let's see where our issue is coming from. Now the issue is coming from here where we have group. This is where the issue is coming from. That's where we have our challenge. So I was supposed to do, this is supposed to be base API group. So this is supposed to be this. That is where our problem started from. That way, the system knows that it's using this part for here. But in our endpoint, it's not saying that's the problem. But I don't know why, because that's why I was monitoring the results here. It didn't say that that was our problem. But let's go ahead and try and see if that solves our problem. It did. It did solve our problem. And everything is looking good. Now, the next thing we need to do is to now check our authentication, because I've removed the authentication part of it. I want everything to go through authentication. And by the way, we can use group and then do it this way. Instead of saying use, we can do something like this. Yeah, this should be, yeah, this should work. Let's now test if this guy is working. So if I do this again now, yep, it's not working. It's giving us unauthorized. Obviously it can't recognize this. It's trying to figure out how to treat this, right? So that's one. But of course, if we call it through the app, it will work. Yeah, I'm sure if we call it through the app, it will work. But let me add one more thing to see if that will fix it. Let me kind of put it inside quotes. And once I try this, it doesn't work. We will now try to see how to implement cookie. So it's not working. Let me now go to the documentation to see how to use cookies. I think I saw it somewhere. I quickly saw cookies somewhere. So this is how to implement it for some other things. This is posting data. is content type user if you want to specify user agent and what have you. So I'm looking for cookies. So this is what normally, you know, I was supposed to be doing: authorization, token, and what have you. So there are different type: content type, posting, file. So we are heading to look for cookies. Okay, I just saw cookies now, but this is another place. So cookie, okay, let me keep checking. These cookies. But I'm looking for where it is used. So I'm gonna try if this guy is gonna help me with the cookie. If AI can set the cookie for us. Okay, I've seen it. So interesting. So we have cookie, then we have the key, and then equal to the value. Key is equal to the value. So let's try it. We have key. This is the key, which is equal to this value, which we did, but it didn't work. Okay, now we have missing token. Yeah, because I'm sure it's trying to check. Let's pass this as a key, as a string, and see if it will work now. It's still saying missing token. So finally, let's do final check. I saw something now. It was very quick. Let me see if I'll see it in another place. Okay, so let's see if the AI can help us set cookies. Let's see if it can fix, if it can find the error and try to fix for us. If it can't, we just do it without that. So let's run it and see if it will. So it's still saying missing token. So what we're gonna do is that let me even find where we are sending missing token in the system. So this is where we are doing missing token. At no point was I using this authentication required though. I didn't use this part. Okay, I think I know what is happening. So we are not using authentication for token to check. We are using cookies instead. So I'm going to tell it to use cookies, because what it's doing here now is using authentication. So it's supposed to be using cookies. Okay. Hopefully it will just work. Let's give it a try. Of course, it requires a lot of debugging, which I have not debugged at all. We've not debugged it, so I don't expect it to just work like that. So the name is not called authentication token, it's called refresh token. What other thing are we missing? Let's see. So invalid token. Now that might be as a result of the fact that it couldn't see what we've posted. So what we can do is to make sure that the value that is calling, that is saying is invalid, we need to make sure that it's actually invalid. I'm trying to put my result on the right hand side so that it can be permanent. But this guy has other plans for me. Okay, let me try to split the code on the right. Okay, good. So run it this way. Run it this way, good. So it's always on the right. Now let's look for where we have our invalid token. So this is where we are trying to validate the token that we have. Unfortunately, our token cannot be easily validated like that. We need to look it up in the database to see who owns it, because that's what I did in one of the getting the current user. So I'm going to use get current user to fix this. So I'm sure it's going to look through it and find the right thing to do. So which is here. That's a lot of code though. What are you writing, this guy? Okay, so bring all the things you need to do. Do I need, okay, user ID, user role, the role. Okay, so let me give it a try again. So finally, we are successful. We've been able to validate that the user exists, and we're able to call work order normally. So, but the way we can do it is to make sure that the cookies is what we're using. And I hope cookies is available in mobile. Okay, yes, available via mobile, so we don't have any issue with that. Okay, so we're not using bearer token. This is cookies strictly, and this value here is actually hashed, so it's not directly in the database. What is happening when we do the authentication part here in the main? The authentication part is actually looking through the database. It's actually going to call to check if that token exists. This is getting the token name and then making sure that the client IP that is requesting the stuff is the one that's actually getting it. Yep, that's kind of strange because I'm not the one requesting, so why am I able to get it? Okay. So let's look at we're able to call work order now. So this is our work order data from the backend, which has the date opened, the description, the department that has it, the status, this is closed. The person that created it, we can, do this by requesting that we want more information. But for now, we are not going to go in there and start asking or probing for more information. So this is the information that we'll have for now for all these stuffs. So let's go ahead and start collating or getting those information out. First thing is we need to look at the way the object looks like. So we need to look at the work order, and this now needs to be available to TypeScript, because this is what TypeScript is going to use to be able to mimic what it wants to do. So I'm going to copy everything like so, and tell it to give us the interface type of it in TypeScript. So we'll go to front end, and then we do our, where's the guy? Is it inside? Yeah, type. So I just tell it to okay, so do that for me. Okay, so we can, obviously it's going to be using, so we have department. Yeah, department is here. Did he use user? Okay, it was smart enough to use user. Person that created it, closed by. Okay, I think I'm good with this, but I didn't see units. I didn't create units. So let's see, how do we make our first call to work order? How do we get all this guy? So let's go. So if we have our front end work orders, where is the page? App route work orders. So this is the manual data, work order data. We're about to expunge all this data and with something different. So we need to should we create hook for work order? Okay, so let's create hook. You can say use work order. So there are different approaches you can use to do this. Let's see, this is a great way to do it. Okay, let's go ahead. So let me give it all the details that we are supposed to have. So I already have mine in type. So we now have this place. I'll just say work on that TypeScript. So I have this. This just from, I just got this one from ChatGPT. Right. Where do you have base API? Why is it specifying that I do this again? Where do you have it imported from? So where do you have, why is he asking me to go through the method of getting this other information? Okay, let me manually do some updates that I need to do myself. So for starters, we don't need to do this one. We are going to be getting from our API guy. We already have a framework, a setup to do API here. So we can Let me see something. So we can do our endpoint like this. We don't need to, yeah, we can do something like this, where we can then do like so. Do we need to put /? I think, let's see. Okay, then we can do something like this and remove this because it's already inside here. This one here is already inside here. We can import this guy, and this become, you can remember that we fell into the trap of this data thing the other time. Data. Okay, then I'll deal with the error later. Okay. What other thing? Yep. Okay, so what's your problem here? Any type. Okay, let's see. It doesn't want us to do that. So what do you want us to do? Oh, how did I fix this issue? There's a way I fixed this issue I saw somewhere. Let me look for it. Yeah, I know that I came across this issue. So this is how I fixed it. So this as this, so we need to import this. So this is a typical response. We need to import this so that this now becomes, we're going to console log it. So this now has message. Okay, this now has a message. Yep. Now we are concerned with this guy, but this guy allowed us to do it the other time now. But now, okay, I think I get it now. Work order is equal to, okay, it's an array. This coming as an array. I think that array thing. Okay. So will this compile so that we know that at least we are getting somewhere? So let's see if this one will compile. We can come and fix this somehow later. Why data does not exist in work order? Okay, we are mapping. This one is already trying to map to work order. That's the problem. But the work order itself is the object. The data return here Okay, I think I can do something better. Yep. So this is what I've been trying to do. There is API response itself. The API response is the what we respond. Inside it we have the work order. That's why we have this and this. But why did he not accept it in the other one? He didn't accept it here. Let me go and look at that part. That's where we have this part here. He accepted it here. Okay, because I did not give it, like I didn't define the type here. I didn't enforce the type that I'm expecting. So I didn't have any problem. But in this case, I'm trying to tell you that, of course, an API response, which I created. And then, because our API response always respond with message, data, and error. Inside the data part is this, which is what I specify. Whatever the data is, it now becomes the work order. Okay, that part is done. So when we do work orders, later we'll be able to now start doing filter and what have you to this section, because here you will now start saying, because this one is to fetch all work orders, you can then now load this hook to have all the type of fetch you want to fetch. But for now, we're just fetching work order. So when I go to all these guys, I need to close all these things so that I'm focused on looking at one particular thing. Oh, I just closed something that is important. So let's go to the work order guy. Okay. So this one now, for example, we need to get it from database. So I'm looking for where to even start implementing it. So let me put it here. So these are various things that we can monitor on the system. So I want to start with loading first. By the way, we'll turn this loading now needs to be a component, for example, because we've been using it severally now. This needs to be a component, so that's just one word, we have it done. Then we need to also track if there's an error somewhere, and that tracks and does that. Then finally we are now returning the major thing. So I'm gonna be killing off so many things right now. Set open card. Okay, I'm gonna kill this guy. So even this guy now needs to go, unfortunately. Okay, so now we need to start even this one. Well, let me leave it for now, but we're gonna be killing off a lot of things. So filter based on active class. Okay, let me comment this one first. Now we need to start using work orders. So that needs to be your array of data. I want to see where you start dumping it in. I think this should be it here. Okay, no, these are the buttons coming in. So this is the work order list. This is filter data. Let me see where this one stopped. Okay, everything is filter data. So if I come in here, this is the order. So each of them is work order. Get work order.id. This is kind of working, but let me see why this one is complaining. So is he expecting that we set the type? Because you can actually, let me use a quick ID. You can actually say what type it is in fair parameter type usage. Really? Nah. Let me see. Yes, work order data, but it's not work order data we want to. It's work order, but it's being used. So this is not the one we wanted to get because we are deleting this one apparently. So the one I wanted to reference is work order itself. Yeah, work order itself. So it's supposed to be able to import now. Okay, this is supposed to be work order page. That's why there's an issue. This is supposed to be called page. So that's inside the app route. Yeah, that's what we'll call it here. So what now happened? Okay, so this needs to be renamed to work order page or something. So under the pages, okay, let's go on. Let's have it. Let's continue fixing the bugs in the system. I don't think we use, okay, it needs to bring in React hook imports. Then for now, let's also import you because I've removed the usage disable. Okay, we need it now. Maybe we'll use it here. So why is it saying that? Okay, let's disable it for now. We're coming to you later. So now we can import you safely. Okay, so work order number, which is work order ID, is what we normally focus on. Then description, let me check the column of the work order. What are the things that we have in work order? In fact, it's supposed to just be giving us now. So we have description, then priority. Did that start picking that up? Priority. So we need to go and create that column in work order quickly. So if I have the, yeah, I got you here. Priority. I think it's also called priority in the database. String JSON. Then I need to go back to my work order. Add string. Okay, so that should set to this priority guy. So I'm having this error on the top of the page. Okay, I fixed that. This ID, I think you guys should go for now. We'll set to you people later. Okay. This one, open card ID. This one is for details. For now, I think all you all should take a rest. Okay, I'm still seeing a lot of red. So on click, this one was supposed to go to the inner page. For now, no clicking. So I have issue with the app router. So what's your problem? So apparently, I'm sure I've seen this issue before where it will not be able to, the page we just went to rename now, it will find time bringing it on board, but I think it's okay now. Let's see what we'll have. Do we have error on the page? No errors. And here, are we getting data from the system, or this is, I'm trying to figure out where this, if this is our data or oh no, I thought as much. So something has broken in the system. Let's see, I think I stopped the server at some point. So let me connect the server again. CD front end. So npm run dev. So this is what I was talking about. This is the network connection that I'm talking about that you need to use. This other one is also for another network, but most times is this second one that you use. So on your system, focus on the second one, and that's what you should be using. So we need to relaunch this guy. And there we go. Our work order, as usual, error, nothing show. So this is where we start another set of debugging to see what is going on with the system. So let's go and look at the, if you look at the code from the browser, yeah, you'll be using the browser. You can't depend on that guy alone. So here we're having issues saying that render few hooks than expected. This may be caused by accidental return statement. So I think it's talking about our hooks. But let me see if it can point to something for me. This may cause, okay. Let's go ahead and see what we did wrong. So we didn't use refresh. I don't think we used refresh. Oh, there's a refresh button here, but this is supposed to be called as a function, kind of. Now this one is not working anymore, so I'm gonna remove this refresh guy and remove this refresh guy. I think we should call it as a handle, but that is not still solving our problem. So let me ask a friend to solve the issue for us. So the problem is from our use states. So all these guys are supposed to be in the beginning, or rather after our constant declaration. It's supposed to be here, not here. So we're supposed to maintain all our variable, use states, one thing. They are supposed to be here before we start doing all these other ones. So now it's showing. Where is that refresh button that we put? I would have loved it to be there again. But what point did we have that refresh safe? I think it should have been, let me try and look for where that refresh button is. Yeah. So that is our refresh. Let me now move all the buttons that we have there, or this one to move it to the bottom. before we start calling useState or any function. Okay, where is that refresh button? Okay, I didn't see any refresh button, sure. Okay, there should be like a so now data is being fetched from the backend. I did mention that we're going to be using, I don't know how feasible it is, we can use infinity scroll, but for now this is what we'll have. We'll be implementing what we need to implement gradually. So the filter part will be for us to be able to call different endpoints based on this. Of course, you can't be filtering on your data because we can't have all data in this place. You have to filter against what you have at the back end. So work order .id. There's something I wanted to add here. Sometimes this thing messes with my head. So we want to add that to, it's not even showing. Oh, that's the key. I'm adding it in the wrong place. So it should be added here in the view. So this is easy. Okay, so those are the ID number. Now I think we can easily navigate to the next page. That one is fairly easy. So what we should be looking at is kind of a filter button to do type. So that means we need to get all the types available. And all the type is available inside where? Where can we get all the types? So it means we will get work class. That's all these things are called work class. Corrective, preventive, inspection, and things like that. They are called work class. So we need to be able, I think we should also be able to get some endpoints without authentication, because it's not everything we want to be authenticating up and down. I just believe that there are some things we can just get directly. Yeah, there's some things we can just get without authenticating. Okay, so we'll first do this manually, and later, to save time, later we'll then do it automatically. So we build it manually because it's not everything you want to be getting from the backend like that. If it's a fixed data, this data I'm about to put in here is fixed, so we don't really need to be getting it automatically from the backend. That's the one we have. Oh, this one here. So this one should be like a map. This should be like a this should have key and value. Is it key and value? I'll call it. So I will just pull the data. I will just put the data this way. Let me see what it's representing for me. Okay. So it's using this method for me. So let me tell it to use this one for me instead. But that's not what I want to call the ID. Okay, I'll just manually call the ID my own self. So this one will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In fact, this should be okay. I'll tell you to change it for me later. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'm not sure if this thing is correct, so I will tell it to update it for me. So I'm not sure if this is correct, so I'll tell it to update it for me. Use the above, only use the and class to set up the array. So it should just use what I just told it to do now. Why is this still putting it inside the